Hi, good evening. I'm Andy Torres. I'm the director here at the American Embassy School, and I'm really happy to greet the 141 of you who are out there anxious to hear about our plans for the reopening of our campuses and limited on-campus programs for our elementary and middle school, particularly this evening. I am going to start this presentation. It's been an exciting week here for us. We've had our grade 12s and grade 11 students on campus for the first time in many months. And I can't believe how much of a difference it makes to have our students on our campus with us during that time of the day that starts us out. I've been hanging out at the gate as the students come streaming into the campus, greeting them, greeting our teachers, and it has been a refreshing sight, honestly, and has buoyed us all around here, particularly in the high school where their students have returned. And we look forward to another batch of the 11th graders tomorrow, and then we'll also begin with the middle school and the elementary next week, along with our 9th and 10th graders. So once again, I'm Andy Torres. I'm the director here at the school, and we're going to be running a webinar. And as usual, down at the bottom of your screen, there's a Q&A button. And I ask that you submit your questions in that link. One question at a time, please. One question at a time. And that way, a whole team of my amazing colleagues are behind the screen right now, ready to answer your questions. And we have a number of Q&A items that we can follow up with toward the end as well. We'll spend as much time as we need within limits to answer your questions. But today, our purpose for you is to clarify our processes and our procedures for the entry of your children onto our campus, into our classrooms, and what our programs will look like. I will be speaking at the beginning of this presentation, and my colleague, Dr. Nada Collins, will be wrapping up the presentation at the end after we show you our reopening video, and we'll move forward. When I started thinking about what I would be sharing today with you and how I might approach this very complex process of bringing children on campus in the time of COVID, I really did believe that, I wanted to first of all stress to you that this is a process that is, for some of you, going to seem slow. Our intention is, and it's a term I see floating around a lot, a phrase I hear floating around a lot. We are going to start slow to go fast. We need to get your children in a space where they can get used to schooling in the age of COVID-19. And we also need to get used to having children in the space and COVID-19. It's been a long time since we have children in the school. It's been a long time since we've taught children in a three-dimensional space. And while our teachers are highly trained to deliver the best quality education to your children, they also are transitioning their teaching from a fully online model to now a hybrid model, and also transitioning themselves to get used to space, physical distancing, and the COVID-19 requirements as well. So we're all in this together, but it's one step at a time. And Iftikhar used this slide with his high school students over the last several days, and it really struck me as meaning something in this case for us. I said to the high school students that we would take care of them, but we are asking them to take care of each other and for them to take care of us as well. And I think collectively, as an AES community, it is our intention that we all help each other along the way, COVID or no COVID. I think that this brings out the best of us when we are taking care of each other. And so I charge all of you, as I've charged our faculty, our staff, our administration, and now our students to be mindful of that care that each of us deserves. To be clear, our limited access, limited on-campus programs is meant to provide opportunities for us to give students time on campus, in person, with their teachers, but in small groups. And so as we move through the planning process, always the intention has been to maintain at the maximum a 50% attendance on a daily basis in our classrooms and in our school campuses. And as we move through the planning process, this has always been our space for considering how to do that. And so we've split our students into two groups, simply named Group A and Group B. And as they move forward, they will attend school half of the days during a given week. Now, some weeks we will have Fridays off. Some weeks we will have Mondays off. Some weeks we have 3-day weeks. If it's a 4-day week, then there will be no planning day, no IBHL, teacher planning day. Teachers won't be running small group interventions during those days. We will just run our regular programs, group ones and group twos, synchronous and asynchronous, in-person and asynchronous as we pull forward. If there is a day that has a 3-day week, then we will provide you with a schedule on what that looks like for those days. And our principals have been charged with providing you with a schedule up to the winter holiday at this point. And then when we turn at the month of December, we will give you the next month. And so we'll always stay a month ahead. So you'll know the days that your children are on and off campus. We're intent on staying in the medium risk zone for as long as we need to. I draw your attention over to the right in the yellow, where our goal is to reduce the time on campus that we believe could cause problems for the exposure to this virus. Hoping that over time, the health of our city, the country in which we live, the world, to be specific, gets better, that the pandemic minimizes, that a virus becomes, or a vaccine becomes available, and we would move down into the green zone on our matrix. But ultimately, right now, we need to minimize spread. We all need to be very, very careful, and we put some protocols in place to do that. I hope you've taken the time to read the waiver of liability and assumption of risk form. And part of that important form talks about our COVID code of conduct and some of the things that we have within that. And so let me go through a few of these things so that you know what our next steps will be as we move your children to campus. Every day, your child needs to bring 3 masks at least. I'll talk about the specifics of the masks in a few minutes, or Nada will. But 3 masks minimum, a couple in their backpack, safely stored and appropriately stored. Don't just throw them in there. They need to be put away in a proper way. Make sure that they're in a covering or something like that so that you don't get dirty, because putting on a dirty mask is counterproductive. If your student's in middle school to high school, they should bring their ID. We have a student health log, which I'll show you in just a second. They need to bring their own water bottle. All of our water fountains at the school have been converted to water filler stations. And so the water bottle is your child's way for hydration. And we want to limit the use of plastic bottles at our school, so their own personal water bottle needs to go back and forth between home and school every day. They should bring their own personal snack. And it's very helpful if the children have their own hand sanitizer. If they're in a space away from school, then they can use their own hand sanitizer. And we'll work on how they can use that, but you should be teaching them at home too, hand sanitization. We have hand sanitizer stations all over the school. They will be using the school's hand sanitizers generally when they're here, but it's nice for them to have their own. At drop off and pickup, we've designated some gate spaces where children should be dropped off. For our middle school and our high school students, we've divided the gates 1 and gate 2 by their last names. And so if you're, for gate 1 and gate 2, you have your spaces you can see on this chart to the right. Elementary students, we are asking that all of you go to gate 5, which is closest to the elementary school. The reason for that is that you will be dropping your children off at the gate, and our teachers and administration and staff will be escorting your children from the gate to their classrooms. If you have older children and you're attending school at the same time, your younger children can come through the gates that your older children walk through, which will be gate 1 or 2. And then one of the elementary faculty or staff will escort your children from those gates to their classrooms. What is going on, Bob? There we go. Our campus access. Our campus is going to be pretty well tightly monitored, because we want to know where everyone is all the time. And so right now, during the school day, the only people who are allowed to access the campus are our faculty and staff, the students who are in the classes during the grouping sessions. Our AES parents are allowed if they have a prearranged meeting with a teacher or administrator, but we are still encouraging Zoom meetings as much as possible. We also are allowing admissions tours for prospective AES families. And we have a number of visitors who come to our campus for business purposes. And so those meetings are prearranged. Otherwise, access to the campus is after school hours or in the early morning when our pool gets reopened, which I hope is very soon, by the way. And those would be by our reservation system that we've had in place already. So I'm going to go through these 6 points. And each one of these has important details. Now, a lot of you may be wondering, how am I ever going to remember this? Where is all this information that I can refer to later? Can I look at it and spend some more time with it so I can become more comfortable with it? We have an access place that all of this information is, but I'm going to provide you some commentary on each piece, going through each one of these 6 bullet points. The first part is, and a lot of people have asked, so what if my kid gets sick? What if my child wakes up and they have a scratchy throat, or they have another symptom that might be listed at the bottom of the screen here? Fevers of more than 100, or they seem tired and exhausted, or they have a sore throat, runny nose, and so on. Well, this matrix or flow chart allows you to see what's going to happen at school and at home when somebody in your household is not well. I have kids, they get sick. I understand what you're worried about, and frankly, if your child comes down with some sort of one of these symptoms down below, as does mine, your heart goes in your throat right now, because you're afraid that perhaps they picked up this virus somewhere along the way, or perhaps somebody else in your household has infected your children. We all carry around that concern with us, and this flow chart was put together with our health office. Hopes to clarify this. The key here is, though, and it's actually at the end of the day, it's very simple. If any of these symptoms appear in your children, or if any of these symptoms appear in anybody in your home, your child should stay home. You should stay home and make sure that you are not sick. Step 2 is make sure that your child hasn't, if your child happens to come in close contact with someone who has been tested COVID positive, or if your child is feeling unwell, always, always, always inform our health office as soon as possible. In our COVID code of conduct, it says as soon as possible, but no later than 8 hours. We would hope that that 8 hours wouldn't happen. While I don't believe that our health office is on 24/7, they are nearly on 24/7. And so out of office hours, a message to the number listed here, which is on our website as well, will give you access to our health office, and they can walk you through whether you have a concern and whether your child needs to be tested or other people in your home need to be tested. We're going to ask that every day you take your children's temperatures before they leave for school. And every day we ask that you're going to record that temperature in the log that your children will be given on their first day of school. Your children to bring that log with them, and we will be asking to see the log when they enter the gate every day. This helps us to prepare, but also encourages everyone in our community to keep an eye out for those temperatures, those fevers that spike when COVID becomes evident, or there's another illness in place. So the key for this is this is our way of encouraging everybody to keep an eye and monitor everyone's health in your household. Again, I have kids. I know how easy it is just to have your child get up and say, oh, I don't feel so well. And you kind of go up and you touch their forehead and maybe you pat them on the cheek a little bit and say, oh, you're fine. You'll be just fine once you get up and get going. Have some breakfast. I've been guilty of saying that to my kids and sending them off to school. And probably 9 times out of 10, they were fine. Maybe they were having some cold symptoms. Maybe they had a little bit of a scratchy throat, but nothing too onerous, nothing that we would have worried about a year ago. But now it's a worry. And every little symptom means something. So again, we ask that you check your children every morning. Make sure they aren't running a fever. Note it and sign it. Send them to school with this health log. Make it part of your morning routine. It's really very, very important. We've put together a document that outlines what we will do when we have fevers or evidence of COVID on our campus. And the protocol is linked in this document that I will send out to you to this document here. And this outlines what happens and the steps that are happening for fevers at campus, illnesses at school, students who are at home sick, positive tests, and so on. And all of this information is available on our website. So you can see that information there through this link that I'm sending out to you, or you can go to our website as well, which I'll show you in just a second. Again, and I can't stress this enough, we ask that you communicate with us as soon as possible if you have anybody in your home that is showing some concern for a virus of any kind. We want to know. We need to know. We have a need to know to advise you and to help you to ensure that this doesn't spread if in case it is. We have set up these phone numbers and these after hours messaging systems for this very reason. A couple of people have sent me some questions around what lunch and snack look like at our school. And I typed in the Q&A questions are at the end of this slideshow, again, that you'll get access to, an outline, which basically says there's going to be limited choices for lunch from the school, veg and non-veg, in a sack style lunch. And I'm going to stop talking for just a second, and if Mr. Bellamy, if you don't mind, if you could come forward and talk real quickly about what lunch looks like at the elementary school, that would be very helpful.
Sure. When we get back to campus, lunch in the elementary school will be delivered. There'll be a limited veg and non-veg options that our food services will prepare, and they will deliver to the classroom. We will sanitize spaces before children eat. We will sanitize after they eat. We will have them socially distanced and facing the same direction as they eat. Those are the guidelines that we received from the CDC in terms of, mask off eating. They need to be socially distanced and all facing the same direction, not facing each other. We will take care of the garbage in CDC compliance garbage cans that are able to be opened with your foot without touching the garbage can and dispose of any trash that needs to go in there. We will help a student if they need something opened that they brought from home, or they need something. Our teachers will help with that, and we may either wear gloves or make sure that we sanitize our hands after we help students with those kind of things. But we know that some of our younger students need help with those kind of things. I think same with snacks. We would help them, and during snack time, again, socially distanced, spaced, and not or physically spaced, and facing the same direction. Those are the key components of what we're looking at to create safety for lunch while we're delivering it to the classrooms, which right now is the plan of how we're going to start.
Miss Clifton is traveling right now and headed back to New Delhi, but I think Miss McMahon is on. Serena, are you there? Do you want to talk briefly about middle school lunch?
Certainly. Look, to be honest, we're very, very similar to the elementary school. So the parents that have expressed that they are planning on returning, when you filled in that survey, you also said whether or not you were interested in the lunch service or not. So families have the choice of bringing their own packed lunch or using the school service. The children will finish their last class, and as is the case with any time they enter a room, they'll wash or sanitize their hands before they enter the room. They're in very small groups. They're with their advisory group. So the children are physically distanced within the classroom. The desks will have been wiped down from the previous class. So they will sit there and they will have their lunch at the best physical distance that we can manage, which would be more than a normal classroom because there's a smaller group. And then those that are having a school lunch, it will be delivered to that classroom for them. Those that have bought their own lunch, they're able to have that there. And then, as Charles said, we're using trash cans that are you use your foot to lift the lid on it. The kids clean that. Anytime the children leave a classroom, they sanitize their desk and their chair again on their way out the door. So that's our current plan for lunches. And that's pretty much what we'll be doing to be able to help them to be able to keep as much distance as possible, keeping in mind that they will be taking their masks off. Andy.
Thanks, Serena. I want to remind you that we have created several months ago at this AES playbook for our limited on-campus programs. We've just updated it in the last couple weeks, and it is available on our website as well. And it has a bunch of new content and some updates that are specific, but I want to draw your attention to this video, which I think provides a nice overview of the work that Dr. Collins and our team here at AES did over the summer to help us to prepare for your children coming back to school. I'll turn it over to Bob to share the video. As we move forward on our reopening of the school year for 2020, I want to let parents know that my team and myself are looking very carefully at all of the priorities around student safety and security and community health.
We are looking forward to welcoming students in a safe and responsible way that brings them together with an abundance of caution. This starts at home. We're asking students and faculty members, staff, to make sure they take their temperature before they even leave their home. That early screening will help us prevent bringing folks onto campus and increasing exposure risk. We know that for some of our families, you're coming quite a distance, and we want to make sure that you're traveling safely and comfortably at the same time. On buses, students will sit distanced but together with family members. Students will wear their masks, and monitors and bus drivers wear masks while they're in transit. Upon arrival to campus, we'll have the thermal screening both at the bus gate as well as at main gates. The use of masks by all of our community members will ensure that we keep everybody as safe as possible. We're following CDC guidelines stringently to ensure that students are protected while they're moving about on campus. We are redesigning our physical spaces so that students are moving one direction as they go upstairs or downstairs, that they minimize their opportunity to cross each other in the hallways, but also ensuring that students stay together in close clusters, that they're not mixing between groupings. We've placed a number of protective barriers across our campus, especially in high traffic areas. We have plexiglass barriers in front of our admissions offices and the libraries, as well as the elementary, middle school, and high school divisional offices, the athletics office. Anywhere where there's going to be a lot of opportunity for interaction through that area, we've ensured that we have minimized the opportunity for transmission. Lunchrooms will also be an area that we pay thoughtful attention to, as students have to remove their masks while they're eating. So making sure students are well distanced during their eating times, perhaps not moving into a common cafeteria area, but eating in their classrooms, especially in the early phases of our opening. AES meets an exceptional level of cleaning standards. We follow CDC guidelines for the solution that we clean with and for the frequency, paying high attention to touch points such as doorknobs, desks, counters, and bathrooms where students might be at a higher level of exposure risk. Hand sanitizers are placed strategically all over campus. One question on everybody's mind is what happens if somebody begins to feel unwell while they're here at school. We've redesigned our health office to create isolation rooms that have an independent airflow from the rest of the campus. Students who have had physical illness will be kept in an isolation room through their assessment, and if they're determined to be at risk for the virus, their parents will be contacted or the faculty member will be sent home at that time. As we speak about community, one of the things that we love is welcoming our parents into our community. But at this time, in phase 1, we won't continue with that practice. We'll ask parents to please use Zoom, phone calls, and other strategies to stay in touch with teachers and to stay close to what's happening. Of course, we'll continue to give you lots of information digitally from the teachers so that you can understand and plan for upcoming events. In 2020, in the age of this pandemic, safety is our utmost concern. We reassure you that we've taken every precaution to ensure the physical safety of your children.
All right, I'm going to turn this presentation over to Dr. Collins, who will continue on with further information. Nada?
Hi, my name is Dr. Nada Collins. I'm the Deputy Director here at AES. I'm going to share a little bit of information today around campus safety, around some of the guidance that has informed the decisions we've made, the routines that we're going to be working on with your children, and also our campus modifications. A lot of this is not new information. You have heard some of this before. We've shared in earlier webinars. But as we approach a day that many of us have been waiting for a very long time, and our desire to kind of be ready, we know that that information from weeks and months ago is maybe not as fresh in our mind. And we also know that some of that guidance is, some of our practices have even shifted a tiny bit here and there as we've learned more and as we've developed better practice. So we'd like to share a little bit of that with you today. Andy, can you take me to the next slide, please? Thank you. So I will say, I think that Ms. McNabb mentioned earlier about that we had surveyed you on your intentions around food. The same survey we did ask around your hopes for busing. This is something that's, many schools that are opening are very cautious around providing transportation, around food, and part of that is just starting simple. We did decide to go ahead and move forward with food services. We are pausing on our transportation schedule. We do want to establish some really good routines with the students who are coming, some good understanding of distancing, good practices around respiratory hygiene, wearing your mask, hand washing and hand sanitization. And as we gain that confidence, adding in additional steps. So we are studying the need and examining the possibility of being able to restart that. The routines, physical distancing, we've been talking about this for a long time. And many of our kids have had 8 months, quite a duration at home, and where they've not had to pay attention. And I joke that transition for some of our kids, we think about how hard it is sometimes for them to come back after a summer holiday. We know that we're going to have to spend a lot of time doing that training. It's already started. The divisions have, the elementary and middle school have already started that work before students have come on campus, as the high school. And now we have a chance to practice these routines. And so we will be spending our first orientation days working a lot on the best way to ensure that we're practicing the distancing that we need to, the respiratory, hygiene, making sure that we're following best practices with mask wear, with hand sanitization. My advice to you is this weekend, build some stamina. If your children are going to be coming to campus soon, start giving them the opportunity to wear their masks for extended durations. Let's go out if you haven't had as much of a chance to do so, or even if you don't leave the home. Let's have the opportunity to wear that mask and stretch ourselves. And help them. They're absolutely going to get it. I don't have any doubt about that. But giving the opportunity to be as successful as possible. You heard Dr. Torres talk extensively about that, kind of stay home if sick. And it's tied in really closely with the education piece that we talked about, the education for our students. But, the first time that your child might experience a symptom, you might think, well, I just know she or he ate something last night, or they just stayed up too late, and this is probably what's going on. We're asking each other, we're asking our faculty and staff, we're asking you, let's all be cautious. Let's all be extra cautious. I've already stayed home this year on days that I absolutely would have gone to school in prior days because the symptoms were negligible, thought I could manage it. We're all being a lot more cautious. So we encourage you to support us in that. Dr. Torres, can you take us to the next slide? There was a question in the chat. We talked a little bit about the water fountains, and many of you have had the chance to see our thermal scanners. We've set them up a little bit differently for our students coming on campus at our main gates that we do have multiple scanners. We pulled them back a little bit from the gate for those high traffic entry points. It's been smooth as we've moved forward, but we know that we're going to continue to test and challenge our system as we increase the number of students. So this going slowly is a really important piece of that, making sure we get the good practice in place. I'll jump down to, this idea of our illness room, it's called isolation room. It is a room where someone can isolate, but it doesn't mean that somebody is isolating. It's where you go when you're not feeling well. And it's a chance for us to get an evaluation and determine the next option so we can advise a family or a staff member. The question came up several times in the Q&A, and it's a really, really important one. When we do answer that question, you'll see that the parent who asked actually linked in an article that talked about, very popular article. I think I've had maybe 3 or 4 people send it to me over the past week. It talked about ventilation in a living room, in a classroom, and in a bar, and it talked about over duration, with or without masks, irrespective of masks, how risk starts to shift, and it's really, it's a very powerful image. It's got it's a very dynamic article because you can see the the density of the COVID virus itself and how it shifts over time. And it's very important that just to highlight, those studies are done in spaces that do not have natural ventilation or mechanical ventilation. Here at AES, we struggle with the natural ventilation, opening our windows and getting air moving for obvious reasons. If it's heat or rain or AQI, it's not easy for us to rely on natural ventilation. We have outfitted every single room on campus, as well as common areas, offices, our theater, everywhere has been outfitted with HEPA air purifiers that are all brand new, that are size specific, that either the size of the filter, sorry, not the filter, excuse me, the size of the air filtration system, or the number of units that we have placed in given spaces to ensure that we are hitting optimal level of filtration. We studied this extensively. We looked at a number of different options, and this gave us the reassurance because our air is already filtered. It's coming in and it's already clean for pollution, but we added this layer of the HEPA filter within all of our spaces. And that the HEPA filter is the recommended strategy both by the American and the Indian Association of Air and Heating, that this is the appropriate strategy used to combat to use mechanical ventilation to combat the spread of COVID. We've got a number of resources. I think that Dr. Torres mentioned that this will be going out. I think actually we're delaying our Tiger Tails just a few minutes so that we can make sure this link goes into it and you have all this information that goes out this evening. So this slideshow, as well as a centralized page on our website, a link that's got all the information that you need in one place. We know that those of you with more than one child and across different divisions, we've been sending you lots of information. So we want to really streamline that, make it very easy for you to go and check what you need, because knowing what number to call the health office today and knowing what that number is in 3 weeks when you need to are going to be very different. So I'm going to jump in, and I think that Dr. Torres might join me back here on screen, but I'm going to jump in and we're going to start looking at some of the questions that have been coming in.
Okay.
And I'm going to take an easy one just because I haven't had a chance to survey them quickly. One that popped out for me is just information about the school lunch. We're looking at things that are quite portable. I know the high school had quesadillas on their first day. They had a veg and non-veg option. We are bringing packaged lunches to the kids, so it won't be the level of variety that we normally have come to expect here at AES, but it will be the level of quality that we expect. It is prepared in-house, and it is delivered to the students in their classrooms.
There was a question earlier from someone who asked about the contact tracing processes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is a really important piece to understand. We are taking this particular piece with a great amount of care, and our health office employees, led by Pippa White, have gone through what I consider to be extensive training on contact tracing, and have been practicing these lessons learned from our friends at the CDC and International SOS on the manner in which we are doing contact tracing. We're following the same guidelines and the same methodologies as those two organizations. And so, Pip, I don't know if you want to step in and say a little bit more about contact tracing, but I think the key here for me, as she comes on to the screen, is making sure if there is a concern in your home that you give us some notice, contact Pippa and her team, and get their advice so they know what to do and advise you to do next. Pippa?
Hello, everyone. Yes, I think that the most important thing to be saying to everybody now is that the people that will also need to quarantine as a result of you becoming unwell are the people that you have been in close contact with. And what we define that with, we go with the CDC, and they define close contact as anybody that is within 6 feet of you for more than 15 minutes. And that can be an accumulative 15 minutes for over the period of the day. It's not necessarily just in one chunk, okay? So that's our primary aim for when we're doing contact tracing. If anyone was to become unwell, we contact you, we go through the interview script, and amongst other things, but the most important thing is this contact tracing. Have you been in close contact with anybody, and that's less than 6 feet for more than 15 minutes? Because otherwise, in order to help make the school safe, we need to make sure that those people quarantine as well. Okay.
Charles, can you talk a little bit with us? There's some questions around the amount of synchronous and asynchronous time. So what happens if my student is not in class? What happens for those students? How are they receiving their instruction?
If I'm not coming to, are we talking about the students who chose not to
How
come?
about if you talk about both groups a little bit, like the kids who are hybrid and the kids who are a full online?
Sure. On the 2 days that their group is not on campus, it will look like our current connected campus learning. It'll be predominantly synchronous instruction with the same content that the kids on campus are receiving that day. Our teachers are still planning together, and so they will plan the work. Some of them will deliver it synchronously to the groups that are offline, and some will deliver it to the kids in the classroom. We've chosen, in an effort to keep kids with their groups that they've been familiar with and connected with, and in order not to make students who chose not to come to class to feel separated or different, we've chosen, our approach is going to be that on the days their group is on campus, our teachers will find ways to integrate them into what's going on in the classroom. That may be Zooming live mini lessons. And then as the students in the classroom break out for independent work, a teacher or TA may be in the Zoom room and set up small groups, or be there available to assist students who are also completing the same independent work that's being done in the classroom. So for the days off campus, it should look like what it does now in terms of a schedule and different segments of time for literacy and math and topic studies, with synchronous sessions with specialists, depending on their schedule. But on the days that my group is on campus, but I chose to stay at home, I'm still going to be learning with that group, and the teachers that are on campus that day will find ways to integrate them into what is happening in the classroom.
Nada?
I'm gonna grab, yeah, sure. I see a question about mask wear for our youngest learners. And I know that, Charles, you've spent a ton of time kind of thinking and talking about that. We've talked to a number of other schools. One of the things that we benefited from back in February and March is that we had sister schools that were all sharing resources and helping us do this the best way then. And we do now as well. There are many schools that have moved to this kind of model of being able to invite some students back on campus. And so that's been a piece that, you know, we've had extensive conversations with CDC and with other schools around mask wear for our youngest learners. Charles, do you want to speak to that for a moment? You're muted, Charles.
Yes, for now, we are going to continue to ask that those students wear a mask at all times. We've talked to kids around the world. There are pre-K 3 students around the world that are wearing masks and doing it successfully. There's one question. I was in the midst of typing a response when Andy asked me to jump in. We are certainly going to assist not just pre-K students, we're going to assist all our students. If they need help or reminding to put on a mask, we're going to do that. But with our youngest learners, our pre-K teachers understand they are going to need to help them with that. They understand that they are going to not be able to social or physical distance at all times. We also need to remember that the CDC guidance is physical distancing not being within close proximity for more than a 15-minute cumulative period during the day. We've advised our teachers that, close proximity things should be, brief, and we're going to bounce around from student to student or position ourselves in a way that we can watch them play and supervise and help them. We have talked to the pre-K teachers, and they know that this is different than working with fifth graders, but we are certainly going to support them and all our students in the safety measures and protocols that we've put in place.
I'm going to jump in on a question, and Dr. Torres, I know you have a slide that kind of speaks to this question as well in our FAQs, but the idea of kind of, if we have this 50% cap and we don't have all of our students choosing to join school right now, whether or not the school is considered the possibility of, taking that 100% of those students who are interested in attending school at this time. And it's quite a valid question. I mean, and it's those of us who have even faculty and administration who have young children at home, there's a lot that's appealing in that. And I think I'm going to reflect back on what Dr. Torres started us with when we transitioned, which was slow to go fast. We really want to build our capacity. We are not keen to rush quickly into what is a significant transition. And we want to take that time to train kids and make sure we have safe practices in place. It is our sincere and absolute hope that that percentage of students who are attending classes will just continue to grow. And as it continues to grow, we need to be really clear with families and not be in a situation where we're inviting students into campus and then sending them back home again. So that window of time where we re-invite is going to come up in just a few weeks. And given how choppy our month of November is, and given the reduced time on campus, it's not that many school days before the opportunity to rejoin comes up. And so we do want to make sure that we're not that we're in a position where we're providing that opportunity for families to step in when they're ready to. That's something we continue to evaluate, but at this time, we will start with our 50% of our students who are choosing to come to campus. Andy, there was a question maybe you want to take, and I'm not sure if I'm pulling up the exact question now, but we've talked a lot about how do you join later if you decide you want to start having your child attend classes. A couple of questions in our Q&A I saw were about, and what if we start off in class and then choose to go to full online learning? We choose not to stay a part of that. Do you want to speak to that question?
Yeah, well, first of all, you have to understand, and I think I have not run into a single person that doesn't, that as we move forward with this, and we've been trying to be very clear about our planfulness and making sure that we know who's coming, when they're coming, and making sure that we give the time to orient and train our students to make sure that they're able to manage the schooling in this manner that we're going to be providing, which is physically distance and the procedures that we have in place. And so to be clear, we are limiting our entry points to only certain days, it'll be about once a month moving forward. We want to make sure that we can get the children who have chosen and the families chosen to come into the program to come in, get settled, get in their routines, understand what they need to do. And then when we bring another group of students in, we can manage that group of size and put them in the appropriate groupings, depending on the number of students in A days and B days, so that we can move forward with the program. We are going to be managing that. Now, if you bring your child for a while and then decide you want to pull your child out and go back to full online programs, perfectly fine. Everybody has that option. So the beautiful part about this is that parents can have that option. But if you pull your child out, then the next time they can re-enter then is that next entry date. Because we want to make sure, again, that we're making sure that we're consistent with our groupings and we're not having people go in and out. Now, there may be family issues or concerns, or you have to do something special. That's fine. Contact us. We'll work with you. But if you want to pull out of the program and stay out for a while and then re-enter another date, you will have to wait for that next entry date to re-enter.
Pippa, I'm wondering if you might join us and talk a little bit about masks. And this has again been a topic that we've extensively had conversations internally as Delhi enters this unique challenge of managing both our pollution and our pollution protection, as well as keeping ourselves and others safe with coronavirus. I know that there's a number of different options that are being marketed. I know as a parent in the parent groups that I'm in and in other conversations, we're all trying to do the best and find the best option to keep our children safe. And Pippa's researched this. She spent time again with the CDC. We're really grateful to have them consulting and supporting us frequently along the way. So I wonder if you could share a little bit about our findings and our recommendations.
Thanks, Nada. Yes, it's something that isn't necessarily on all of the websites across the world, because it's not necessarily a problem that other countries are having, but it's certainly one for us, isn't it? So the masks for pollution versus the masks for COVID, well, they're both pretty important right now. So here are the options. You can either wear a mask, a pollution mask that doesn't have a valve. Now, I'm not talking about the heavily sought after N95 masks that the healthcare workers desperately need, but there are pollution masks that don't work on a valve basis. So you could use those, and those could also double up as a COVID mask because they don't have a valve. Also, you could use your pollution mask that does have a valve and then just wear a second mask over the top, just like one of the disposable surgical masks would be fine. And they tend to be the most comfortable when you're doubling up. Finally, there are masks available now that are the valved pollution masks that have also got an inbuilt kind of membrane like extra layer where it means that the if you that your breath no longer goes out through the valve. So it looks like a pollution mask on the outside, but when you take it off, there's an extra layer on the inside. So your breath doesn't go directly into the valve. And those we will accept as well.
I saw a question. I saw a question about when students can rejoin and what the window is. What's the next available date by which that we will invite students back into classrooms? I know we had talked about that a little bit, and maybe wanted to adjust that start date just a tiny bit so it's the beginning of a week. And I'm not sure if we've talked about that, Andy.
Well, in fact, I'm not really actually willing or ready to commit to a specific date. So we're looking at the first week of each month, or the first week of the month available. Obviously, the first week of January is not going to work. We're going to go on holiday, but we'll be looking at a day and dedicating an orientation day for that typically, and we'll work through that. So those details are coming through. What's going to drive a lot of that decision is the number of people who are interested. If it's just a few, then we can do it quite simply. But if there's a large number, then we need to manage that number a little bit more specifically too. So we'll figure that out. We've got the number. Everybody's let us know that they're interested in starting later. We didn't ask for a date, and we will make a decision about those specific timeframes once we have that specific information, and the divisions will be reaching out to you on that.
And if a family is returning, if they've not been in India and they're returning back into India and they've just arrived in the country, or we're not, maybe we just missed that re-entry deadline, but you've let us know that you're coming. Yeah, we'll be flexible in those situations.
Different. But people returning back to India will have to quarantine for 2 weeks. We're not going to let them come to school until they've been home and quarantined for 2 weeks. And that's going to put them at this point, based on our holidays that are in front of us, pretty close to the first week of December. We'll work with families as that happens through the rest of the school year. Serena, you have some information on our performing arts, and particularly somebody's asking about music protocols and wind instruments.
Absolutely. I can talk from a middle school and the high school perspective. In that case, our teachers have been working extensively and researchingly over everything from main orchestras around the world to other international schools to our sister schools. And what they've come up with is not only do we have the children physically distanced, if they're in strings, then they're always wearing their masks, that's fine. Specifically for band and for anyone that has to be blowing instruments, Jamie has worked closely with all of those children and has explained to them they've got masks where they've carefully cut a slot in so that the flute can fit inside there. She has had special bags made for each of the instruments so that it reduces the chance of any sort of air being blown out, moving away from them. So she has spent a lot of time getting as much information and as much options available to be able to play those instruments safely within the space that we have. So she's been working really hard on that. And my understanding is that she's been working with the children and explaining to them what it's going to look like so that it's not going to be surprised. So I know the clarinet, it's like playing without looking at your, it's like typing without your keys. They'll have their hands inside the bag so that there's no sort of air being blown out around them into the greater area. It's going to be contained in that bag and then they'll all be clean. So that's my current understanding from what Jamie's doing with the middle school and the high school. With vocal, they're spaced out at 8 feet distance apart. I know that Lisa's also been working very extensively on making sure that we've got the best processes. We've got the air ventilation that's obviously going to be important across the school, and we're doing that. And I believe they'll be wearing masks while they're singing as well.
Can I add to that from an elementary perspective? I just want to make it clear that space is an issue, and we're looking at alternative spaces for when the music department, music teachers want to do singing. For instance, the cafeteria we have below the elementary office area is a big open area. If we're not serving lunches in there, we can use that as a space they can go to, being masked and physically distanced at 8 feet and be able to sing. But we will not have children singing unless we can have an environment and create the environment where they are appropriately distanced and can do that. But we know that's an integral part of our music program, and we are looking for ways to do our schedule so that spaces are available that we have to do that. But we will do it safely.
I want to jump in and answer a question about travel outside of the Delhi region. And we noticed this earlier today that the links that were sent out for the waivers do have some dated information. They are updated, but the PDFs might have had some old information. It is available on the links that we're going to share with you, and those live links are updated because this is a very dynamic situation. So one question that I just wanted to answer here was about travel outside the Delhi region by car for a couple of days over the weekend, and questions about quarantine or informing us. Those guidelines are no longer in place. That was Delhi government guidelines or NCR guidelines. And at this time, travel within the country, domestic travel by flight or by car, does not necessitate a quarantine. That 7 days has now been removed. And again, if you want to look at the most current contract, it does stay updated online, not the waiver, but the contract. That does stay updated online, and we'll share the link with you tonight, and we'll share it out in Tiger Tales.
Let's see. There's somebody asking about track and field and basketball events. At this point, we are not allowed to do any after-school sport activities. We're still waiting for that. We're not going to be doing any sports at this point. We'll be looking to maybe implement those later on after the winter holiday. Plan for recess, Charles, for elementary school?
Sure. For next week, when they're here just for the orientation days, the playground equipment won't be used. We'll take them out there. We'll talk about safety protocols. We're looking at, I can't say that we have a definitive date yet that we will allow the playground equipment to be used. We want to ensure that our kids have down the routines of hand washing, mask wearing, and all the things that they would need to be able to do in order to be safe using the playground equipment. Again, we have the AQI issue as well. I mean, the days coming up that we would even be able to go outside are probably going to be limited. We would continue to do the things we've done in the past with the NPR and other spaces that we can use to do some sort of recess, which could be indoor recess in pods. But again, whatever we do, it will be masked up with the appropriate spacing. We talked about this week with teachers that some of the things that we do for indoor recess, we would need to make sure that if it was Legos, a student has a set of Legos, that's their Legos, and those Legos go out of distribution until such time as they can be sanitized if they're used during recess, or any other type of games or things that we might do for indoor recess. So we've talked about those things. If we were to get to go outside and use the playground equipment, it would be masked up, it would be physically distanced, and we would, CDC guidance is that if we have enough time in between the use of that playground equipment, that it's not necessary to sanitize every piece of equipment after every use. But our focus would be on making sure students are hand washing or sanitizing their hands before they go to the playground, after they come back from the playground. I hope that answers. I'm not sure if that's exactly the answers or the question to your question, but those are our thoughts on recess at this time.
And also, Charles, I know you have some ideas or some things you can share about pickup for elementary school children.
Sure. Right now, what we, again, because I know it's been mentioned several times in the Q&A, we're keenly aware that if we were to just mass dismiss elementary kids, we would have a crowd at the gate. We're working on a system, and I'm going to send out details tomorrow. But essentially, what we would do is we would have people outside the gate, and as drivers, nannies, parents, whomever arrived to pick up students, we're going to have a system to get information back to the classroom. We're going to assign you a number. It'll go home with your oldest sibling in the elementary school on Monday after the first day, or on Thursday if your group comes on Thursday. And we're going to feed that information back to the classrooms, and your family will be assigned a number, so that when you arrive back in the classroom on a computer or a screen that adults are monitoring, we'll enter that number, and again, one per family, and those kids that belong to that number will then be escorted from their classroom to the gate that you arrived at. So we'll have people at each gate, 2 and 5, and one if necessary, but 2 and 5, we will have people at the gate, and we'll get your kids down to you. We're keenly aware of trying to keep that physical distance and managing elementary kids and trying to keep them safe. I'll provide more detail on that tomorrow in a communication.
Very good. You want to choose another one, Nada?
Well, there's one question that's actually very specific to a family, but I'm going to go ahead and answer it because I think others might have that same question. What if I've already selected something and I want to change my mind before school opens on Monday? Or in this case, maybe I forgot which one I selected because I went back and forth so much. I can kind of, I can resonate with that, right? This is not an easy decision. And I think a lot of us have, like, even if you felt sure what your answer is. So, this is something that's taken a lot of time. And I imagine maybe a lot of conversation in some of your households where, the right choice for your family is very personal. So if you're not sure, reach out to your divisional, your child's divisional administration tomorrow morning. If you need to verify with them, and if you've made a different decision or you want to find out what the decision you made was, we can still work with you tomorrow morning, but just give us, that very early notice to make sure we know how to support your family as fully as possible. We won't be able to be flexible once kids start coming on campus. So if you're not sure what you selected, just tomorrow morning, reach out to the divisional administration. For the parents who did put their request in the chat, I'll take care of that. I'll make sure that I've taken your name, and I'll respond and make sure that gets out for you in the morning. But for others, then you will have the chance to connect, please, first thing.
Andy,
There's a question about food allergies. Who do we, I believe we contact the health office, correct, Pippa?
Yes. What's
The question is, someone says, with whom do we contact for a food allergy? We have a food allergy. Do I contact the health office?
Oh yes, that's me. That's
Okay.
me. Just we have normally picked all of those things up when you have sent in your health form. So we go through all of those and we pick up things like food allergies. If they are severe food allergies, then we would have been in contact with you about creating a specific plan about what to do in the event of an emergency. So basically an anaphylaxis. Those with more, because food allergies could be like quite a big range, but we certainly let the food services team know who has what food allergy.
Thank you. Charles, this question's been, or Nada, are you going to answer it about pre-Ks and social distancing? I see somebody was going to answer that.
I think that is the one that Charles did answer a little bit earlier in the talking, but we just didn't get that one closed. But I don't know if you want to add anything about the numbers of kids. All of our classrooms have been measured. Every single space on campus has been measured for maximum capacity. And that is, we're well under that in all of our rooms for this time, and we're continuing to monitor it. It's by adults and by students, and that's allowing them to be properly spaced within the room.
Yeah,
Charles, did you want to add something?
A couple of things to keep in mind, particularly in the grade levels where we've remodeled and we have the pod system, right? So you're only going to have 2 classes, and only the kids that chose to come to campus in those 2 classes in that big pod area at one time. In pre-K, just off the top of my head, I want to say the numbers in each group were around 20. So we would have 20 kids in the entire pod area for pre-K. So we'll space those kids out in groups with teachers and TAs and do that. There's plenty of space for 20 kids in that entire area to be physically distanced. And it's the same in the other areas that we have. Now, we in kindergarten, it will look a little different, right? We may have to have some groups in different rooms and use the space for of the classes that aren't there, that they're offline that day. But we are looking at all of that, and we have worked out solutions for that. Other than those areas but in the areas that have been renovated, the size of the groups that we have coming, we've more than enough space to keep them physically distanced. While I'm talking, I'd like to address the stationary question, I think, in elementary school. Yes, we will continue to supply your kids with the things they need here at school. What we've done is we are putting together a pencil box bag for each student at every grade level so that we can keep that with that student. And we will educate them and train them on, we can't share, we can't pass around, and our teachers will manage that process. But we will continue to provide what they need here at school.
4 open questions.
I can say that the question was about bus transportation. We are studying this issue, and we're doing our best. We do know that there is demand. We have a number of students who live quite a distance from school, and we want to support those kiddos with coming. We also want to do it safely and responsibly. We don't want to, we want to offer that service in a way that we feel very confident. And again, that ties back to a couple of different things. One, as I mentioned, hand hygiene, respiratory hygiene. Let's get all those habits down before we start adding additional layers. And then the second piece I would add to that is really just studying that the need meets what we can offer. And we are currently doing that. The third thing I would add would be the opportunity to make sure that we are, we're training the bus monitors, the drivers, bringing them all in, making sure the training is complete. Anybody who's traveled outside, giving them a bit of time to quarantine, even though, if they've not been in Delhi itself, as many of them have not, that's no longer an India guideline, but people who've been living in other locations and who might be taking public transport to get back into Delhi, giving them that time to quarantine before we do start services. So we don't yet have a fixed date. We actually have already started that process of kind of figuring out the count as soon as the surveys were in, and we've already been working on it, but we do not yet have a fixed date for return for the busing service.
A question about taking attendance, and I know that this has been a bit of a surprise in the online environment, the challenges of attendance that none of us realized were going to be challenges. I will say a couple things. Number one, we're talking a lot less about at this point in this state and where we are delivering education, less about attendance, like being there, and more about engagement, about your kids engaging with the content, engaging with the recorded lessons when necessary. Obviously, there's going to be it's sort of a different time and space, and for us to be tracking and rewarding attendance would be perhaps counterproductive. Encouraging kids to come to school, maybe not feeling so well, is not something we should be doing right now. And I recall myself remembering one of my classmates when I was in school getting the perfect attendance award year after year. And I know that child, that young man, my friend, came to school sick over and over again to get that reward. We can't have people coming to school sick now. The good news is, if you're sick, you can stay home. You can still attend school. And so I guess that's a nice option. But again, this is part of that partnership and encouraging I have older children, so they should be reaching out to their teachers themselves. For people with younger children, it's you reaching out to the classroom teachers and saying, hey, my son or daughter is not doing very well, and so on. So, it's part of that process. And I will say, over and over again, and if I'm going to be talking to people over these next many days, these first few days, about going out to the playground, about going and using the restroom, about using water fountains and filling their water bottles, all that stuff will need to be taught in this space. Mm-hmm. And our teachers are talking about how they're going to do that with their kids and how they'll reinforce those ideas. And so I see a question about how we're going to enforce being physically distant on the playground. Well, we have to teach it. We have to teach it. And at this point, in this time of in our history, that's a life skill. That is very, very important.
Andy, if I can just tag on to your attendance comment, we're sending the same message to our faculty and staff.
Absolutely.
Just like many of you we hire our employees and they're given a number of sick days. And obviously we're going to have to be flexible with that this year. So we're going to be able to really, we're sending that same exact message. If you're not well, stay home. Once, do the symptoms evaporate? Do you consult with the health coordinator, our health office, and we recommend and we give them advice, just like we will for your families, that we want to keep everyone as safe as possible. And so we know that whether they're literal or metaphoric, there's no attendance awards this year, right?
No way.
Yeah.
No way.
Charles, did you want to add? Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Charles.
No, I just wanted to add that, one of the things that we're looking at in any of the situations, just like the dismissal and the arrival, is wherever possible, we want to create a sort of, a really low ratio. In other words, we're going to have as many adults as we can possibly get out there at recess. If that means Mr. White and I and the counselors all have to go out to every recess, and I take 3 kids in this area, and Mr. White takes 3 kids, and then Miss Kelly takes 3 kids, and that's what we're going to do. I mean, we're going to do whatever we have to. We do have to teach them, and we hope over time that as we teach them, and our 5th graders will get it quicker than our 1st graders. But in the interim, until we get to that point, we will get as whatever resources we need out there to ensure that we can supervise and manage it in a way. We just, in the elementary, we're going to tell you how important it is for those kids to have active play during the day. If we can provide it outside, the AQI doesn't always help, but we know how important it is. So we'll take whatever measure and commit as many resources as we need to make that happen.
I'm going to, I think I'm going to have Pippa answer this last question, which I know is on a lot of our minds, mine included. It's the air quality is not that great, Pippa. I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. You expressed concern that the air quality was going bad and people were going to start having that little sort of nagging cough. So help us out, help us parents out to sort of figure out.
Yeah. So it's again, it's a difficult one, but we are going to have to just be really, really careful. A cough is one of the symptoms, and if you've got one of the symptoms, you need to be staying at home. You need to be calling us at the health office so that we can kind of guide you through what to do next. But in essence, if you have a cough and then that cough stays for the next few days, then you're going to need to get tested. Okay. The good thing is the guidelines are quite clear in that it's a new cough. So when it's a kind of new cough for this year, because this is the time of year where people start to get either their pollution coughs or their seasonal allergy coughs, well, that's new for this year. You're probably going to need to get tested. Once you're tested and you're negative, then we can compare for the rest of the season. We can say, is this your normal cough? And if it is, confident that you can still be at school and that you are COVID negative. So I think there is going to be quite a lot of testing at the beginning that we're going to be asking parents to do, but then that's going to be our baseline. So then if the cough continues, but you are COVID, you've already been tested, the cough is no different, and it seems that it's very much in line with allergies or with pollution, then we're quite happy to take that as, yeah, you can still come to school.
Thank you.
We've just got to keep everyone safe. We've got to keep the whole school safe.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to close and wrap it up here, but I wanted to touch bases on a couple things. And Veronica, that's actually one of the things I was going to talk about. And that is, well, we are investigating the possibility of setting up testing here on campus. We'll have an answer for that, and so you can look for some news about that, and I will follow up within a week or so in that matter. That's the first thing that we believe is important, and if we can do something to help us address contact tracing as rapidly as possible, to address these concerns as Pippa just addressed as rapidly as possible, I think it would put us in good position. We'll see. We're doing our best to follow up on that. We've got some wonderful resources we're tapping into. The second piece, and I think it's the most important one, and I appreciate the concerns and the articles that have been brought forward, and it illuminates the fact, my dear friends, that this is a very, very serious virus, and Thus, we have taken it very, very, very seriously. We believe we put together some of the highest quality classroom protocols and guidelines for our schools that we could possibly muster, taking the best advice available. But at the end of the day, it is a virus and it's invisible. And so we are giving families the option of not coming to school if they do not wish to. We believe that we can protect ourselves and our teachers and our faculty, and people who are choosing to come to our campus are able to make that choice. But at the same time, we're also committed to continue, as Serena and Charles have already illuminated quite well for us, the fact that we will continue our synchronous and asynchronous programs in the online environment for the families who choose to do so. And that option is available. And I believe that that option will continue for an unforeseeable time, because we'll need to do that until this pandemic diminishes significantly. We all hope that's very, very, very soon. But none of us, at least none of this on my team on the screen, have any control over that. But we do have control over our behavior. We do have control over the environment that we provide for our students in our classrooms. We are confident, and we've taken the best advice we can possibly get to help do that. But again, I wish I could say it was perfect, because there's nothing perfect in this world. And so we allow people the space and the grace to make the choice that they wish to have. And we will move forward. We will do the very, very best we can to ensure the care of your children, with whom we love. And it would scare us to death to put them in harm's way. So we are going to work very, very hard to make sure your children are okay. And I've got the best team in the world. So we're going to do this. If you want to send your kids to school, we'll love to have them. If you want to keep your kids at home, we will try to do our best to take care of them there too. We appreciate your support. We appreciate you being a member of our AES community. I look forward to greeting you all in person in 3 dimensions without a mask as soon as possible. Have a wonderful evening.
I feel like we are truly loved here by everybody, and we all care about each other. So the students are incredibly diverse. They come from a wide range of backgrounds, and they're very comfortable sharing about where they come from and learning from each other. My colleagues are incredibly supportive and fun to be around. I love coming to work every single day. And the administrators are open to ideas, and as teachers, we're a part of the conversation. Every single person that is a part of the AES community is in an environment where they can be who they want to be, share with each other, and they feel incredibly supported and loved.
If you've ever been to Delhi before, you know that the people are innately kind and generous, and love sharing the beauty and the color of India with you. And we do a really great job of making sure that we bring that into everything that we do, from lessons to festivals, to regular daily interaction.
As soon as you walk onto our campus, you're greeted by our beautiful gardens, our facilities. The amount of green space and trees are just absolutely beautiful. It's a place where we can all come together to learn, whether you're a teacher, a parent, or a student.
What I like most about AES is our student body. They are the life of what we do and of our campus.
I used to teach here at AES 15 years ago. I left 13 years ago. I went to many different schools. I love teaching in other places, but the feeling of belonging and community that we have over here is something that I never found to the same extent as we have at AES. So I came back, and I love belonging, being part of this gigantic family.